Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and I can assure you that this is probably going to be the best webinar ever. So do reach out to your colleagues, friends, and associates to please log on right now to this live session. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the privilege and pleasure of having with us Mrs. Eitayo Yotin, and she'll be speaking to us on the topic From Operational to Strategic, Elevating HR's Role in Nigerian's Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, and I will read our profile, just a brief excerpt of it. Eitayo is a psychologist, human resource management specialist, and ICT project manager with nearly 3 decades of experience in project management, learning and development, ICT sales and operations, organizational development, talent management also. Our career success include building IT transformational programs for employees of some of the largest corporations in the Nigerian public and private sector, such as NNPC, NLNG, Central Bank of Nigeria, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and Dangote Industries. She recently led the Secretariat of the Nigerian Country's Code Top-Level Domain CCTLD Manager, NIRA, as Chief Operating Officer, and participated in driving Nigeria's internet policy as a member of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for the Nigeria's Internet Governance Forum, the Meetings Planning Committee of the CCNSO, one of ICANN's supporting organization, and the Local Organizing Committee of the African Internet Governance Forum. Eitayo sits on the board of the Africa Top-Level Domains Organizations as President Chairperson, and she's a member of the advisory board of the Fatima Balaraba Foundation. She's also a member of the 2025 Nomination Committee of the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers. Currently, Eitayo serves as the managing partner with Talent Urbanity Limited, an organizational development startup practices as a therapist at Weston Coaching, and hosts a Bible study for women called Regenerate, which has battered a Bible-based mentoring program known as Camel for Women. She also runs a quarterly academy for single parents known as Single Parents Transformation Academy, where they have now formed a support system for women who are parenting alone. Eitayo holds a master's in organizational psychology from the prestigious Alliance Manchester Business School. She's a certified cognitive behavioral therapist, also certified in ability and personality testing, project management, and life coaching. She is a member of the Life Coaches Association of Nigeria, Internet Society, the American Psychological Association. Eitayo is invited to deliver leadership transformation programs, transforming the strategic direction of organizations. She also speaks at numerous forums with a primary focus on mental health, policy formulation, women development, technological advancement, organizational strategy and leadership, internet governance, parental, healing from trauma, and youth development. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the host tonight on the topic From Operational to Strategy, Elevating HR's Role in Nigerian Organization. You have the fun. Thank you so much for your sacrifice. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Yemi. God bless you. Thank you for all that you do. And good evening to everybody from the HR Mentorship Tribe. I keep missing the hangouts, but one of these days I will be there. It's a pleasure to be a member. I've been thoroughly blessed. And I'm speaking on a topic that's very close to my heart. For many years, HR has been treated like a nice to have part of organizations. And because HR herself has not evolved to become more strategic, HR has stayed operational. So a lot of times within the organization, the full functionality of HR is not achieved. So this evening, I want us to explore, and I'm going to ask you to also, contribute to the conversation when you can. I want us to look at the traditional role of HR in organizations, and then how to shift HR towards a strategic partnership with the organization, and then what are the HR capabilities that we'll be looking at if we're thinking of being strategic, and how do we overcome the barriers to strategic HR. Yemi, please, how many minutes do I have? Just so that I am aware.
1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes is fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So, the traditional operational role of HR in Nigeria focuses on core administrative tasks. Most of the time, we call it hire to fire, right? We call it hire to fire. From when people come in, onboarding, making them compliant, paying their salaries, to when they retire. And this focus on the functions, the operational functions like payroll, keeping employee records, performance management, they are administrative responsibilities. For most CEOs, they are not able to connect how this affects the bottom line. And so, because of that, it has stayed basically administrative. This is the traditional role, and it has stayed transactional. Now, the problem is that because of this focus on routine tasks, I have actually heard CEOs say, anybody can do HR now. Ah, is it not HR? You know, the role has become so administrative that it looks as if you just set the thing in place, it's just going to run itself. So it we don't think about HR when we want to think about organizational growth. In fact, many organizations would define a role without including HR, right? They don't see the importance of asking HR to do a skills matrix, for example, and look at the specific skills that they even need aside from the role that you're trying to fill. What are the strategic skills that you would like to also bring into the organization? So there are many ways for HR to be strategic, but I go ahead of myself. Let's look at the challenges faced by HR in routine operations. The first is inadequate resources. I tell you, most organizations will tell you, why do you need more than two people in HR? I'm sure you've heard those kind of things. So there's insufficient tools and manpower. Many organizations will pull the purchase of an HRIS to the last. They would have bought opportunity management, they would have bought sales management, they would have, the HR information system is somewhere at the back. So operationally, even in operations, many organizations are still dealing with many stacks of paper. We're still dealing with bureaucratic bottlenecks. HR is not actually able to take HR decisions to the last point. In many organizations, HR would report to maybe admin. In a few organizations, HR will report directly to the CEO. In whichever case, when complex policies and procedures are involved, HR needs to explain and explain. I mean, you have the certification, you understand the process, but then you have to explain and explain. And somehow this reduces the responsiveness of HR. Because after you spend weeks doing work and putting together a file, you come and explain it. The CFO, CEO, CIO, whoever is making the decision, may not necessarily understand it, and then this reduces agility because you go back and then you now try to merge the business case with HR. And there's also the fact that the decision making power is restricted has not helped. So the ability to implement changes swiftly is lost. HR just doesn't have the strategic position that is necessary for HR to support organizations as HR should. Now, the impact on the overall organizational performance of these problems that we've mentioned. First is employees feel a little bit disconnected. HR is overwhelmed. We've said not enough manpower, not enough tools. And so most of the time, employees feel disconnected and unmotivated because they are just there. They are like the bad child that you call when the employee is not doing well enough, or the person you call and give a job description and say, hire this person for me. Why have you not hired this person for me? You know, and then of course, this when these HR processes are slow, there are important decisions that cannot be made. Organizations' agility is very well impacted. Look at the recruitment processes and look at the process for onboarding. a lot of stuff can be automated. But because HRIS is down at the, and even when HRIS is purchased, maybe it's only some very functional, some very basic, basic functionalities that the organization will pay for and say, well, why do we need it? And because of this limited HR involvement strategically, there is there's a lack of um, optimal use of the human resources that organizations have. If HR is allowed to map skills properly, HR is allowed to do proper data analysis, there are opportunities to utilize employees' talents more effectively. So a conversation about HR becoming strategic is inevitable. HR must become the strategic partner of the organization. So when we want to shift HR to strategic management, so the first thing we need to think about is integration with organizational goals. So strategic HR management aligns the policies directly with the overall objectives of the organization. Many times, HR is lost in strategic planning. In fact, in many organizations, HR is not called into strategic planning. It's shocking that the plan has been done, the resourcing plan may have been thought through, and then HR is called in to actually fill the roles. But HR is not called in skills matrix. HR is not called in organizational structure. HR is not called in change management. These are critical roles for progress in an organization. So if you don't integrate HR and the HR function with the organizational goals, it's going to be a little bit challenging for the organization to have cohesive progress. Then long-term workforce planning. Because HR is not brought in from the onset in terms of employee mapping, task mapping, workforce planning, there is a lack of focus on future workforce needs. There's a lack of focus on the future needs of even the existing workforce. If HR is not brought into budgeting on time, for example, budgeting for capacity development is hampered, which brings me to the talent development focus. So if HR, when HR becomes strategic, if you have HR that is strategic within an organization, it will emphasize the development of the employee skills and capabilities that are necessary to sustain organizational success. It will look at the skills. So now HR, traditional HR, may put together a PEM tool, may put together a performance evaluation tool, but may never actually link that PEM tool with each unit and each department of the organization, and whether the PEM tool captures the nuances or peculiarities of the various departments within the organization. And if the tool doesn't capture it, it's a failure of HR. It will be considered a failure of HR without considering whether HR has been brought on board as a strategic partner so that HR can help the organization from the get-go to make sure that workforce planning is properly done. When strategic HR management is effective, it will contribute to the organization's competitive advantage. Look at things like staff turnover to actually see the numbers, the metrics of staff turnover. Who is going? Who's coming in? Is there an age problem? I mean, data analysis is, I love data analytics, so don't mind me if I go analysis a bit. But looking at the actual data, not just the quantity, not just the qualitative data, which is what a lot of HR focuses on now, traditional HR, but the quantitative data to see. You can look at all kinds of things. Organizations, you can look at gender, you can look at leave, leave and time. You can actually look at health of the organization based on when people take time off. The weather is changing. A lot of people may be falling ill at a particular time. How many people are not healthy at a particular time? How many people are taking sick leave? So data is critical to competitive advantage for the organization, excuse me, for the organization to have that advantage that it needs, that competitive advantage, that resilience. That's the word I think I like to use for this. That resilience that the organization needs to have. For the organization to be able to have it, the organization must have strategic HR management in place, and not traditional HR management that is brought in, at one point or the other. So what are some of the key drivers for HR transformation in Nigeria? The first is globalization, the impact of the capacity for people to sit in Buari, Abuja, and be working for an organization in Tennessee. The impact of globalization has increased competition for the Nigerian workforce. We have more access to international scenes. So that means that if new HR strategies are not adopted, that match with international standards, staff turnover will just continue to be on the increase, particularly in a certain demographic. This is where analytics comes in. What's the demographic that is relocating? Where are they going? What kind of jobs are they taking? So there's the impact of globalization. This will impact the way that people work. So, for example, remote working, it has come to stay. A few organizations that I support have said, "Oh, we're going back to full time in person in the office," and then in a short while they say, "No, no, no, we don't think it's working because everybody's now disgruntled." So the reality is, remote work has come to stay and it's not going anywhere. Then there's the technological advancements. You've heard the rumor of AI is taking over our jobs, and AI. The truth is that AI can transform the HR processes and make them nimble. I find that of all the factors and of all the things that are beautiful about AI, the nimbleness of AI, the lightness of AI is such an asset. And so you can actually use AI to draw up plans, and then you can critique those plans. So there's speed that we have as a result of technological advancement, which we didn't have 5 years ago. So this is a key driver in Nigeria. There's also the connectivity. It's also technological advancement. A few years ago, when my organization created a WhatsApp group, I declined from joining the WhatsApp group. I said, no, my WhatsApp is private. I don't want to be discussing, WhatsApp is instant messaging. I don't want an instant messaging from you after work. Now it's 2025. It is almost inevitable that you have one or two WhatsApp groups that are actually they're actually work groups. Maybe not necessarily your organization, but I mean HR mentorship, for example, is a very, very functional, very, very professional group. So now we cannot take instant messaging away from, which means that the difference between work and privacy, the lines are blurred. And when the lines are blurred, that's a totally different thing. So technological advancement has brought with it a few of its own challenges, but more than that, it has also brought the opportunities. Now you see how many updates the HR information systems are having in a year: 3, 4, 5 updates. Things are constantly getting redesigned, more nimble, they're faster, they're easier, the user experience is changing. What I see on my screen is so easy now, travel planning and so many other things. So technological advancement is a key driver. Then how about workforce expectations? We've talked a little bit about remote work. There is now the expectation that I can talk to my employer. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. The employer would, read the Riot Act and everybody would fall in. And now people are dropping their resignations and paying in lieu of notice. That wasn't happening 10, 15 years ago. So now we see, I think that, post COVID, obviously, the world that we have is, we don't have a normal, we don't have a new normal. I don't like to call it a new normal. We have a completely new world. In that new world, the expectations of the workforce have changed. So HR that is traditional, that is not going to listen to the workforce, that is not going to be nimble, that is not going to be adaptable, that is not going to be flexible, will not be an HR that wants to be strategic. So how do we even begin to align the HR objectives with the business strategy of an organization? So the first thing is that HR needs to support the overall corporate objectives and vision. Yeah, the mission and vision. Yes, you've even crammed it and you printed it and it's in everybody's view. But do you understand the strategic mission? Do you understand the objectives, all the pillars? Do you understand each of the strategic activities in each of those objectives? Can you key the HR initiatives into each of those strategic objectives and make them nimble, make them applicable? Because if your HR is speaking French and the organization is speaking Latin, then there is no interaction, and HR is doing HR stuff, and HR may be doing it very well. They may be speaking exceptional French, business French, and if the organization is speaking exceptional Latin, they're still not talking to each other. This is what happens when HR initiatives are disconnected. HR would just stand up and say, "Oh, I think we have budget. It's end of the year, and we need to spend it. We need to do some training. Kindly identify 4 members of your team who need training." And it's completely disconnected from corporate goals. It looks like HR is not listening to what's happening within the organization. So HR is looking like that auntie who comes to your house without calling you first. Then there's the agility that organizations can enhance when HR objectives are aligned with the business strategy of the organization. How will HR improve sales? How will HR improve customer experience? How will HR improve, so many of the real factors that the organization is measuring? How will HR reduce staff turnover? How will HR ensure that staff have all the tools that they need? So it's important that HR is completely responsive to market changes. As the organization is transforming, changing its approach to the market, HR must be also transforming that. HR is a strategic partner now. So if the partner is moving this way, HR has to move as well. And then there's the high performance culture. For many organizations, performance measurement has become a drag. It's not fun. It's not something that employees even look forward to. It's just a thing. But performance measurement and having a good performance culture is a reason for innovation, is a reason for creativity, is a reason for competition and sustained high performance. But if it is misaligned with the organizational strategy, then HR is measuring things that don't align with what the business would like to do. Meanwhile, the business wishes that HR would measure in terms of high performance the things that matter to the organization. I hope that makes sense. So, do we have any questions so far? The room is quiet.
I have a question so far. You raise your hands. We'll
Okay,
unmute
excellent.
you, or you can drop it in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well
Thank you
done,
so
man.
much. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about building these competencies. It starts from the competencies. You have to first build the competencies. It's nice to think strategically, but if you don't understand what strategic thinking means, and there are many ways to think strategically. If you can't plan properly, if you can't see a line from beginning to end, then it's going to be difficult for you to align anything with organizational goals. If you're just thinking of the task, the HR task itself, as the thing that you are, that your goal is, then you may be misaligned with organizational goals. The second thing that HR really needs to do is understand business operations. What do salespeople do? What do the procurement people do? What do the vendors? What's the relationship with the vendors? The supply chain, how does it run? The IT people, how do they work from day to day? What kind of challenges do they have in tech? Like, you have to understand business operations. You can't sit in one room somewhere and then when there's a meeting, you just say something without actually capturing the challenges and the needs of each of these organizational function areas. So it's important that HR helps to drive decisions concerning business operations. So when HR becomes strategic, one of the competencies that HR must develop is business acumen. Then there's change management. This is one of the things I thoroughly love to do. Go into an organization and help them to manage the effect of change on their employees. Now, if you don't understand change management and you don't understand the factors that come into play, the kind of knowledge, you don't understand change communication, you can't advise the organization when a change is coming up. This is how to communicate it. You can't talk about what streams are going to be used to communicate it, how frequently this communication should happen. There's such a collection of activities and outcomes that need to come into change management. But if HR does not have the competency of change management, does not have the leadership skills of change management, it's going to be very difficult for HR to come and support the organization through any change. HR is just going to be dragged along just like everybody else is dragged along. And then the last is strong leadership capabilities. Most of the time, when people come for mentoring and they speak with me, they say, well, I don't see where to go. Many organizations don't have the um, CHRO position. Even if they have it, it's like a triangle, right? There's so many down here, and then at the top there's just that seat. And what I say is, at some point, your strategic thinking will lead you to be able to build critical competencies to be able to pivot at various points in time. HR ought to be able to pivot into many roles. So strong leadership skills will contribute to organizational decision making and help organizational direction. And then it's also going to enhance the decision making process, because HR is coming to the decision making process with the people at the back of HR's minds. And that will really, really help to develop the competencies that HR needs, the leadership skills that HR needs. Now, let's talk a little bit about analytics. So, you know, I know that in Nigeria it's a little bit difficult to forecast. I mean, it's hard to think about a man standing in front of a plane to block it from taking off. These are really, really difficult. You know, the we are so unique in our behaviors that yeah, it takes a lot to be able to forecast workforce and look at the needs and all. So the earlier HR starts to look at global analytical points for informed decision making, the more competitive the organization is. What I'm saying is, right now, you are an organization in Nigeria, but you can think and behave and act like an organization in Singapore, which is one of the countries that I truly, truly respect HR practices in. So if HR is able to do workforce forecasting using analytics, when the CEO, CFO, CIO, when they're asking for why a decision needs to be taken and you are able to present it in numbers, I tell you, the conversation changes. You're not just saying, oh, we should move Eyitayo from this role to this role because she smiles. Oh, she comes in early. That's not what we're saying. What do the numbers say? We need to move to a more quantitative way of taking decisions. How about measuring employee engagement? Have you heard about presenteeism? Where employees come to work early, they show up at work and they're at work all day, but they're at work all day and they're not productive. So engagement, it starts from productivity and it can go all the way to complete passivity, and all kinds of behaviors. But you see, if you measure employee engagement by checking, for example, your change communication, what's the response to your change communication? By employee surveys, for example, from time to time, can we do a survey? Can we feel the pulse of the organization and not wait for the organization to actually have a headache before we start feeling the pulse? And then looking at performance as a strategic driver of growth, not just something that we do every quarter and something that we do twice a year and we just have to do it. Is performance measurement. No, performance is guiding strategic improvements. He scores higher in this, she scores lower in this, she scores higher in this, he scores lower in this. And so we're going to move them and see, oh, we're going to, this manager has a way of producing other managers. And so we're going to use this manager as a mentor. There are critical conversations that have to do with strategic improvements and decision making that HR can actually drive if HR has the analytics, the data. Sometimes we go into organizations and people say things like, Madam Meitayo, nobody responds to survey. And then we deploy a survey and we have over 90% response. And I say, well, it depends on how you communicated the survey. There's so many factors. It also depends on what kind of survey. You want people to take their time to give you data. The data has to mean something to them. You have to coin your questions in a way that is scientifically valid, yet emotionally and psychologically satisfying. So just putting, bland, assess the performance measurement framework on a scale of 1 to 10, that may not cut it. So if we want to be able to evaluate effectiveness, I mean, even as human beings, then we have to look at performance and we have to look at outputs, and you have to be able to say day in, day out, hour in, hour out, this is what I have been able to put out. Technology is a huge driver to enhance HR effectiveness. It's been a long time I met an HR leader who is uncomfortable with technology. We thank God for that. But how do we automate repetitive tasks? There are tasks that organizations should not even be getting themselves into. And I don't want to mention specific tasks because I don't want to cause another conversation here. But there are many things that employees can do on their desk, and it can go to approval, and it can go to implementation, and excuse me, and it can just move. So automating, I mean, some organizations have the full Microsoft Office, for example, the full cohort. They have the license, and they don't use the workflows. Like, they're so straightforward to use. Yeah, HRIS is nice, is good. It's good to have a proper information system. But can we even use our workflows? Can we start to use, the things that come with the licenses that we already have? And then try and reduce the errors as well, because more manual inputs, more errors. I remember many years ago we were implementing a software ERP application at a government agency, and just cleaning the data, just taking the data, cleaning it and uploading it took like the whole time of the full duration of the project, and we didn't finish. It was really tough because when things are written in paper, handwriting, you can't read it. You can't read. Somebody wrote April, you think it's something else, and the challenges are just numerous. So accuracy is a big thing when it comes to precision of HR data. While I know that in certain organizations that we will not name now, people go back and do affidavits and change their date of birth, but in most organizations, you enter and then it's a journey until you exit. By the time that you're exiting, we ought to be able to create for you a map of your growth while you were with the organization, whether it was for 2 years or it was for 12 years or 30 years for that matter. And then technology is able to help us to focus on strategic priorities. If we're not spending time doing mundane tasks, mundane repetitive, be careful with tasks that are repetitive because they can be easily automated. And once you automate it, then all you're doing is taking feedback. For automation, you must remember that it's garbage in, garbage out. So I'll advise that we take a few courses in, basic data management, understand data management, look at, you know, probably a little bit of security as well. Just understand it. It doesn't mean you're going to implement it. We're just saying that if you're going to get a vendor, you might as well understand exactly what their tool is going to do for you. So data, let's talk a little bit about it. So data-driven insights will enhance your decision making. If you're able to analyze your workforce data, you will identify trends and skill gaps way ahead. You're able to forecast. You can manage talent and retention strategies if you're thinking of, using data. And then performance metrics, so objective, not subjective, not affected by the whims of whether who somebody likes somebody or doesn't like somebody. It can really be linked with objectives, activities, strategic activities, and the strategic plan of the organization. And then finally, transparency and accountability. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me HR is not fair, HR likes certain people and doesn't like certain people, if I had $1 for every time. So that this transparency using data is, so even when you are now pushing things, even up to board level, when you are pushing a decision and you are able to show it, graphically, you're able to show it in numbers, you can't argue with numbers. And I hope that nobody here argues with numbers. So what are the barriers that we have to strategic HR in Nigeria? The first is resistance to change. Um, we like who we are, and most of us are comfortable in our skin. And when you therefore put a lot of us together, then change is like driving a wedge. We are so resistant to it. And sometimes this can slow down strategic HR initiatives, even when they are so critical. So there has to be proactive change management. And I say proactive because change management must start before change starts. Like there's a cycle before change starts. The other thing that I find a lot in Nigeria is that we have rigid hierarchical structures. The structures are so rigid that it's difficult to communicate, and flexibility is hard. So yeah, I know that we are very elder. If like respect your elder. If somebody's older than you, the person must know more than you. But this is not necessarily true, because exposure is what creates knowledge, and information. It's what gives you power. Information is power. And so information that is useful is like unlimited power. So if you have rigid hierarchical structures and you are not thinking about how to flatten those structures just a little bit from time to time, then it can limit communication. And many organizations end up being top down all the time. And after some time, there's so much disillusionment and disharmony, and there's so many employees who are disgruntled that even though the CEO, the board, everybody's saying the right things, but when it comes to the actual output, the output will be hard. They won't see the output. The third is traditional mindsets. I find that a lot of people, even within not just HR, within organizations, kind of resist anything new, anything strange. Now, think about our lives. When you move into a new house, sometimes for the first few days, you're thinking, I miss my old house, even though the house is exciting, it looks nice, you've settled in, and all that. So, even as individuals, when change comes, we have to train ourselves to adapt to the change. We have to tell ourselves that change has come, and so it is time to adapt to it. So, it's important that there is openness and adaptability. Transparency will help with traditional mindsets. Information will help. um, Information, I don't think there's ever anything like too much information when it comes to HR and the organization. And now I'm not talking about confidential, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about confidential information. I'm saying this is why we're doing what we're doing, this is how we plan to do what we're doing, this is what we plan to achieve, and this is how what we plan to achieve will help you. And these are some things that we can think about when we are trying to counter the cultural and the organizational resistance. And then, of course, I've spoken a little bit about change management efforts. Effective change management is essential. I think all organizations should have, project sponsors in every unit, in every department. They should have people who are able to take bite-sized pieces of the strategy and communicate them into, or take huge chunks of the strategy, sorry, and communicate them in bite-sized pieces to their team. So change management efforts will also be something that will counter resistance. Now, resource constraints, I cannot overemphasize this. Every time there's a budget, unfortunately, I mean, it's changing now. It's changing now. I see in a few organizations it's changing. People say, no, this training budget is going to stay. But in those days, training budget was the first to go. Budget to hire, second to go. Increasing salary, no. What is the percentage of salary to outputs? Blah, 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 blah. No, I would not do more than 30%. I don't want to do more than 28%. So the budget limitations are real. And they can restrict strategic HR initiatives. But this means that we need to be more innovative. We need to be more creative. We need to look at what we're doing and do it in a way that is more localized. It's global but localized. And then there's skill shortage. And it's unfortunate that there's skill shortage with all the work that Yemi and his team are doing. I don't think many people are certifying, so they're not picking up the skills. Many people still think that, or they think now that HR is going to be taken over by AI. The truth is that HR may likely be one of the last places to be taken over. That's true. HR analytics, yes, but HR in itself is about the people, and people talk to people. So we have to be careful with the mindset that HR is going to the back burner. HR will go to the back burner if HR stays traditional. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we need leadership for change management. So, most of the time, HR knows what to do in terms of change management. We have a good idea. But the leadership is not committed enough for HR to be able to have the support that it needs to drive what it needs within the organization. It is important that we carry the leaders along from the get-go. We can't have change management, change champions, a change initiative in an organization that is not being supported by leadership. How do you carry leadership along? Data. So if you ask, excuse me, if you ask for, I'm sorry, I've been talking kind of all day, just pardon me. If you ask for um, commitment from leadership and you're asking it in the air, oh, sir, we need to do this change management initiative. You have this big proposal that's like 30 pages long, which they're not going to read, he or she, they're not going to read it, but you don't have data that links with the organizational strategy. Remember what I said, you really need it. And then if change management is effective, I tell you, the adoption of new strategic HR practices, like change management starts from the CEO. Yes. Many times we do change management, yeah, we think about bottom up. That's good. But bottom up right to the top. The change must also trickle. I don't know if you can trickle upwards, but the change must shoot upwards to the CEO so that you get buy-in. This is another thing that I find that HR doesn't do that well, excuse me, to get buy-in from the C level. HR is shy sometimes to go and fight for buy-in. Sometimes it seems as if we're not confident in what we know, or we're not confident in what we're fighting for. And so we quickly crumble when it's not going that way, or when they say, no, 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 you don't have your strong reasons. It's important that we have, our strong reasons. Excuse me. So let's look at how to measure strategic HR. What kind of KPIs would we be looking at if we're measuring strategic HR? Well, you know that talent retention will always be there. HR is the ability for HR, excuse me, the ability for HR to keep valuable employees within the organization over time. It will always be a metric that people want to hear. How about employee engagement? You're able to look at workforce motivation and satisfaction using employee engagement scores. What about time to hire? I don't know if this, I used to do a lot of recruitment, and honestly, time to hire became a block for the success of the business in that area, because so in Nigeria, in most organizations, you get a huge pool. When you put out an advert, everybody's applying. By the third, by the final decision making process, you might only have two options for the client to choose from, or three options for the client to choose from. So time to hire is a little bit more complex now, and it's not just in Nigeria, it's actually complex across Africa now than it used to be 2 or 3 years ago. And then there's HR business contribution. This is critical, that you're able to say, this is how HR is going to contribute to the success of this business. If HR is able to do this, then we're able to do this in the business. Everybody wants to see that you have a little line that is pointing to organizational success. And this is dependent on what the goals are that the organization has put out. How about regular feedback? I find many HR managers that I come across say, well, whatever, even if we send them, they're going to say HR is bad anyway. They don't want to give us feedback, and so we shy away from the feedback, but the feedback actually will help continuous adjustments and improvement. So it's important that we ask for feedback. I had mentioned earlier employee surveys, you cannot escape it. It is data. It is beautiful data. And you can find so many creative ways to do these surveys. It's amazing. So find creative ways to do the surveys. I supported an organization once, and we decided to put, they were complaining about the lunchroom, lunch area, and we decided to put one of those smiley clickers, at the exit of the lunchroom. And just measuring every day as the changes were being implemented, before going out, just click the smile, or you would have seen it in the place restaurants where you click on a smile, or a frown, or it's just average. So those kind of, that's also feedback. That's an employee survey. That's an employee survey, particularly if the lunchroom is only employees using the lunchroom. That's a survey as well. So don't think about surveys only in the traditional surveys. Think about easy surveys. Think about one question surveys. Think about votes. Oh, we're doing elections in the organization today. You're doing a vote. Everybody that comes in, and I can give you so many creative ways to do this so that it helps to motivate the workforce. So I want us to look a little bit at three organizations. I had so many, but I think that these three capture it for me, who have implemented strategic HR initiatives in the last few years, particularly since COVID, COVID down. MTN Nigeria did a digital people strategy. I don't know if you are aware, where they accelerated digital HR learning platforms. Is interesting. Just a few weeks ago, yeah, they were doing some trainings that I kind of supported, and it's interesting how they are now thinking of issues like mental health, like employee support systems and all that. Now, even though they're going very digital, it has allowed HR to become a strategic partner within the organization. And this way, when large scale operational change is happening, if HR is strategic, then HR is able to support, that change. GT Bank, unfortunately, you would have experienced a few of the snags, sorry, that they had, with their upgrades. But then they did a process and capability modernization of they're still in the process of it. And it's looking at the people, the HR systems, the performance systems, and all that. That also has truly, truly transformed the way that the organization is engaging. Dangote as well, looking at culture and HR strategy alignment, have made some deliberate efforts for organizational culture, for talent management and HR practices, and they have high retention. They actually do have high retention, high productivity, and all that. So when an organization is able to create a partner out of strategic HR, there is no doubt that the organization will be successful. And when HR is able to position itself as a strategic partner, that organization is definitely going somewhere to happen. So for me, these are the success stories. I went back to read all those stories, and these were the things that I noticed, which we can take to heart. The first is leadership sponsorship. You're not going to get this done without leadership buy-in. So you have to do the matrix. You have to be able to tell a story. All HR people should be major storytellers. This is the beginning, this is the end, this is what is going to happen in between, and that's what we're gunning for, profitability. Also the use of digital HR and analytics, HR information systems, learning platforms, analytics that inform decision making. Looking at the talent, architecture. Now we're clarifying roles, those gray areas, we're clarifying it now, defining job descriptions better, and then looking at career pathways so that people can actually look and see where they're going. Many people leave organizations because they can't see where they're going. These are some of the themes that we found in success stories, where you are able to build your pathway from the onset and able to now load it with all the courses, the skills you need to develop, the competencies you need to develop, and all that. And then there is culture and change management. We saw a lot of that about communication is so key. There's a need for transparency. And then you have to integrate the people. You can't do something for the people and not involve the people. And then putting rituals that reinforce new behaviors. I was talking the other day about putting, an indicator at the exits of a canteen and having so much feedback just from that. And of course, looking at KPIs in more measurable ways, also linking them to productivity and the metrics that mean success for the organization. And when we are able to implement all this, to think of these themes and look at how they matter in our organizations, then we are then HR becomes strategic. We will overcome the challenges we have said, and the organization will be able to see HR's contribution for sure in the organization. So thank you very much. I hope that I didn't bore you, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much. Yemi, over to you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
This was very enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have contributions? Do we have comments? Do we have questions? This is the opportunity to chime into this conversation. If you have any questions and you don't want to be invoiced, ask right now.
No, I mean, they have to be invoiced. It's the only place to get it for free.
Mr. Yemi, I have a question.
Okay, go
Please.
ahead,
Oh, sorry.
Emeka.
No, sorry. A remark. Eitayo, thank you so very much.
Thank
You
you.
did excellently well. I just needed to share a few perspectives because of the sector I work in. I must give it to the private sector because in the past 14 years plus I've practiced HR. It's been in the development, which is NGO sector, and a whole lot of these things are I'm very short supply. I'll be very honest with you. I follow a lot of HR thought leaders
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn and X, and I glean on all the things they share. And when you try to domesticate it into the sector where I work, it becomes an Herculean task. I'll give
Mm.
you a contemporary example. I worked for an organization that got a grant from USAID, and so I looked at the whole. In my first 100 days when I resumed, I did a complete audit of the HR system to first of all unearth areas where there were challenges. I submitted a comprehensive report. I copied the director of finance, copied the director of compliance. Till I left, I never got any feedback from there. So now in the more than 10 years the organization has been in existence, they have not conducted a performance evaluation for one day. They didn't
Oh, wow.
have they've never assessed nobody. So I had the very first time a performance evaluation was done was during my time.
Wow.
And good enough, I made recommendations on two very outstanding candidate employees that were given letters of commendation and were given gift vouchers. And it revved up. Then subsequently, I did a stay survey. Not we have I developed a template for exit survey. Then I did
Mhm.
a stay survey. Okay, why do you want to stay? Why are you interested in working
That's
here?
so
So
lovely.
yes, these are some of the feedbacks. And the funny thing is, you go for management meetings, you present it to management, it dies there. Now, because of this Trump challenge of funding cut, my project recently ended.
Sorry
I
to hear
worked
that.
as I worked as a recruitment specialist for a US based NGO. I was fully remote. Now, first of all, the time to hire was 120 days. 120 days on the average. Then what I did was to conduct a candidate's experience survey to first of all understand the perception of candidates about the entire recruitment process. What are those areas where gaps had been identified? What was management doing? Because I
Mm,
had the supervisor ahead of me. So I agree with you 101% about applying strategic HR if we want to earn a seat at the table. But I'll
yeah.
quickly tell you this. In the NGO space, we are still very, very neck deep in operational HR. So I want you to know
Mm,
that. I
mm,
don't know how you could break in. I don't know because I don't know maybe it's the perception of those at the helm of affairs. Most of them are medical science professionals, and then
mm,
they struggle to go and get an MBA, but they don't understand the critical nature, the very
mm,
pivotal nature HR
mm,
occupies, and the granular details of what we could do to help them first of all maintain cordial relationship with donors,
mhm.
retain employees,
Yeah.
and boost performance.
Mm,
Lastly, I follow Lou Adler. You may know Lou Adler.
yeah.
Yes, Lou Adler came up with this concept of performance-based job description. When you use AI to do it, it just shrinks everything into a two-pager. You know what are those core areas of measurement, and for an employee, when you're very, you know how you're going to be measured. If you veer off this line, that means you know that you don't earn full marks. So I'm giving you thumbs up for an excellent delivery, Mr. Yemi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You
Thank
are you
you,
are God
Emeka.
sent to HR. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Emeka.
Thank
I
you
have
so
to
much.
connect with you on LinkedIn, please. Nice. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I think you should react or respond or say something based on it.
Yes, so I hear him, and honestly, I do understand because my work cuts across. I support all types of organizations. More recently, I've been supporting government organizations, and the challenge is another level. So sometimes the problem is that when funding comes, the funding focus is not on the people but on the program. It's
Mm,
just on the outputs, like just the money is for this, so achieve this. How you achieve it, I don't really want to know. Now this is driving the chiefs of party and the people who are driving the work not to look at the people and the challenges with the people. It is so bad that, I mean, with this USAID crunch and everything, some people did not even develop enough skills to look for work because they never thought they were going to need to look for work. There's also this stability in the development world that you always keep going from one NGO to the other. So, when funding comes, and that funding includes salary, and that funding says, as long as you keep achieving these targets, I will continue giving you the funding. Sometimes it affects the way that the people problems are dealt with. But if we have everybody like Emeka who's looking at, okay, I hear you. You have funding, but you also have people, and it's the people who are going to deliver on the funding. So what can
mm,
we do to help the people? And now I think that we're going to enter a phase of a reimagined development world, at least locally in Nigeria, where the monopolies of certain organizations have been broken. And so we can rebuild in that space in a way that considers the people and builds actual career paths for these people in these areas. Thank you. Thank you, Emeka.
Sorry, additionally, additionally, while working for one of the most reputable NGOs, for want of privacy, I won't mention the name. Then I was an officer because I followed Talent Connect. That was where my on LinkedIn, LinkedIn used to organize Talent Connect. LinkedIn Connect. Forgive me, LinkedIn Connect, but they no more organize it again. So we came up with an L&D plan. So when it was submitted to the country director, he said they have a shoelace budget. It's okay, fine. So it got me thinking. I went back. I started doing research. That was at the very onset of massive open on online courses. I came back to my associate director HR and said, "Ma, I think since there's a shoeless budget for trainings, could we massive open line courses are free of
Yeah.
charge and you
Yes.
earn verified certificates.
Yes.
Can we
Certificate. Yeah.
direct people? Can we direct people towards that that path so that they could actually upskill or reskill as the case may be and get verified certificates?" That was the onset in that particular NGO up until when I left, because I give it to the private sector. You like the nimbleness you mentioned. You need to sit down and you need to wear your thinking cap, because the way HR is being practiced in the NGO space, I'm sorry, it's purely operational. I've been there for 14 years. I can tell you for free, but I look for opportunities like this to learn, because so I can go back home and try to see if I can domesticate it, because the private sector, they are flying by. And if you see most of the models of trainings or facilitations like the one you just had are to a very large extent skewed towards the private sector. You
True.
know, so like in the NGO space, the HR only gets to know the work plan after it has been approved by the donor. You're never part of the conceptualization, planning.
You're not even thinking of
They give
resource planning. So you're not
the
participating in
finance
resource planning.
because we share payroll with finance every month. They know your annual salary. They use that to forecast. You're not even involved in the process. What you just wake up one morning, a donor has approved the grant. This is the staffing plan we'll have.
Wow.
This is the payroll. This is go and implement. So that is it's I know it for free and nobody can contest it. And I'm happy enough that you have interacted with NGOs and you can bet me that what I'm telling you is the truth. So it's that bad.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emeka. I think I saw somebody's hand up earlier, Yemi.
Yes. So is Bukola Messi? Then we'll go to Madam Omoba. Bukola, if your hands are not paining you, you can please contribute now. Sorry, our virtual land has been up for a while.
Yeah, we apologize.
Right, thank you, everyone. Good evening. I must say that this is actually an interesting and insightful session.
Thank you.
So I have a question, and my question is around what do you advise that an HR does when the head of HRs don't stay for 6 months in the organization? I mean, 2 months they are gone. In fact, I've experienced a month. They are gone. And then the challenge is that you're working with an head of operations that feels, what is HR doing? Like the head of operations can hire and fire, like behind the HR. And then you just get reports, this person has been fired. And then you want to investigate on what basis, why, how. You get, you have,
and HR
you're
is not
coming up,
involved in the firing.
and HR is not involved. You have innovative ideas, strategy. You've done a lot of strategy planning with the team, and then you want to implement, and then the head of operation is saying, no, I'm not approving this. No, this is not. No, we can't do this performance appraiser now. No, we don't have this budget for salary review. And then when you are telling the team it's time for performance evaluation, everybody just take it as a joke, because the way I was taught in CIPM is that once you are doing a performance evaluation, you don't just end it at performance. You have to reward high performing employees so that they get motivated. And then it could be like a ginger for the underperforming ones. But right here, there is nothing. Performance appraiser is just like a routine, because the chief operating officer will not even allow you to rest. So what do you do in such a situation?
My first point would be, if you find out you're in an organization where what you're describing is like HR not functioning, it's like comatose, HR is comatose, which means that you are not even growing your own career, because your career grows as a result of your work. And many of us came from L&D, from different areas of HR, and then grew into organizational impact and all that. So if you are not even able to practice your art, so to speak, how can you support the organization? I'm not sure that you can bring about change if your directors of HR and your HR, I don't know what you call your head of HR or CHRO, keeps living in a month. When you join an organization, it takes about 3 months for you to even get used to the processes and all that. It takes another 6 months, or it takes another 3 months, which is 6 months now, for you to become operationally functional. So if I have not even stayed long enough to impact the organization, then that means, that tells you that that organization is going nowhere. When you see people quitting the same role and you see multiple people coming, I don't think that organization is a place where you will be able to grow properly. So you may need to start looking for an exit plan. And sometimes we don't need to stay in a sinking ship. Sometimes we stay in a sinking ship for no reason. So I would say you won't be able to change an organization where your HR lead continues to resign. They don't stay. One even stayed 1 month. I mean, that's risky. Even for you, it's risky. Yemi, are you frozen?
My network. Yes. I was tempted to ask her, and if she can respond, it may be good. Why are they leaving so quickly? From the HR's perspective, did any of them ever tell her why? By
Good
chance,
question.
by any chance?
Yes, good question. I like that.
For the most part, you don't even
You
get
can
to
see.
know that
Yes.
they are leaving.
Oh,
Yes. And then when you try to even find out, you just hear, oh no, I can't work in this space. I can't
mm,
work in this setting.
mm,
And it's obvious, because you have good innovations, you have ideas to actually move. The organization is more or less a traditional, setting structure. And then you spoke about technology. There are a lot of things that in the HR department we have reasoned, and we have concluded that we need to automate certain processes for a lot of, because the very first time I joined the organization, and then a medical practitioner was invited, to have like a health talk with the employees. When it got to the question and answer segment, I could count about 15 questions. I can say that about 10 out of 15 questions were, how do I handle depression as a result of the workload I do? I'm
oh,
always having I'm always having sleepless nights. And then at that point in time, it dawned on us that the manual processes for this job is too much. And then we have to introduce technology. But
mm,
she will not, the COO will not even allow it to fly. And so they just get frustrated and then they leave.
wow, that's sad. I wish
Wow.
you all the best. That's really
So,
sad.
final question. Why are you staying?
Dr. Adoshu. Dr. Adoshu, mind yourself. You're putting her on the
Oh,
spot.
I want to learn from her. I want to learn from her.
This is my challenge in
If
researchers. So,
multiple senior HR people are exited. No, I'm just curious. I like her resilience. I want to learn from it.
yeah.
Okay, Madam Princess, you can weigh into Bukola's, dilemma. Now our joint dilemma.
Good evening.
Omoba, you have the floor.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
Good
everyone.
evening, ma.
Thank you, Madam Itayo, very
Thank you
much.
very much.
I'm
Thank you.
telling you, Dr. Yemi, the first thing I was going to ask her before you said it was like, I'm wondering why you're still there.
Mm.
Would you like to, is there something? Is it fear of not being able to get another job? Or is it the resilience of trying to impart a change? And, just keep digging your heels in that maybe, just maybe you'll be able to, bring about a change. Because it looks to me like an organization that doesn't have a good structure, that the culture is not, on point, that everything is just done haphazardly. It's not a well-rooted, it looks like a one-man's business. It looks like a one-man's business, and the one-man person has an agenda which everybody has to follow. They don't have a proper, who will do things and you're not involving your HR? Which organization is that? It has to be a one-man business. I don't know, but in my head, with all of the things that this lady has said, it appears that it's a one-man business. They have their agenda. I don't know why they've employed you, but you've got so many people that have come and they've left, even in a month. What does it? So, Madam, I'm sorry, I've lost your name now. You need to ask yourself why you're still in that organization. You need to ask yourself, I don't know how long you've been there. You need to ask yourself what value that organization has added to you as a person, to your mental health, to your professional growth, and to your, professional work that you're doing. So if you cannot give a good answers to all of these things, you need to start mapping out a way to get into somewhere where you'll be able to not just be able to do your work properly to your satisfaction, but also a place where it will give you a platform to soar, to be able to really do the work of an HR person. You already said it, that what you were taught in CIPM. So I'm assuming that I take it that you're a member of the CIPM. And one of the things that the CIPM has taught us is that resignation is always an option.
Yeah.
You understand? So if it is fair, you might want to start pushing out your CVs now. Start pushing it out so that you can get other offers. Maybe you won't leave the job until you get another job. So that can give you some comfort that, okay, you've stuck it out this far, but let me just start looking for another avenue. And I will see if it's a salary that I'm collecting that is making me afraid, because I know that it's very difficult to leave a job when you haven't gotten another job, especially if there are finances that are attached to it. And this our platform is it good enough for you to network,
Yes. Global
network and
platform.
see. Let people see your value. Let people know you. Let people push out yourself so that you can get. So I think you deserve better. Even the way you have spoken shows to us that you are very, very passionate about effecting the proper HR process in any organization that you work with. So I think that would be my, take for you on that particular issue, our madam that has spoken. So now back to why I raised up my own hand. Just like Mr. Emeka said, he said, he was like, hello, I'm a retired public servant. You need to come and check up. Oh my goodness. I'm glad that Madam Eitayo works a little bit, with public servants, with the public service. So I'm sure you will know that, when I got into Lagos State, one of the reasons why I got headhunted into Lagos State, Mr. Ayomi, please don't mind me. I need to give the background. One of the reasons why I got employed into I was headhunted from the UK to start off the Office of Transformation, Creativity and Innovation in Lagos State, where we were effecting, new ways of work into the system. This was way back in 2008. So we started off, and all of that. So we started the process of evolving from personnel management, ancient of days, kind of, into proper, HR. And we put that into effect. We were beginning to do all of the things that we wanted to do. We brought in CIPM and all of that. So I was one of those that were pushing all of those things. And from 2008, we did not start off on the path of HR until 2015.
Wow.
Until 2015. Because there was a whole lot to do within the system. First of all, we were dragging it that they must have admin. I bet we are the only people in the world that have HR and admin tautology, because they just needed that nomenclature of admin. The directors were fighting with everybody, So if just on that level, we were the first state to be bold enough to remove ourselves from the APA that they use in federal for the assessment and appraisals. Yeah. We now started our own, which is called the SPADEM, which had become more objective. I have never seen a performance appraiser that was. You've worked with. I'm sure Dr. Adeyemi knows what I'm talking about. The performance appraiser in government. If you are not a good person, I will fail you. That's it. We don't even talk about it. Somebody would have been promoted or would have left 3 years ago. Is still coming back to that their oga of 3 years ago. For the person, it is when they want to do promotion that they will be looking for. So Lagos State changed that. So I'm not bringing down Lagos State, because I was part of Lagos State and I know the amount of work that is going on to really upgrade and ensure. Now, for the new entrants, they're telling them, if you're not CIPM certified as an admin officer, you cannot be part of, the HR and admin. If you're not CIPM certified, or you get in, you put yourself forward. And so I'm sure Dr. Adeyemi will know that there's quite a lot of the HR, admin officers that are now coming on board of the HR. These are some of the work. It is a lot. So that man that is talking about the NGO, you are nothing. You are still good, lucky. You are still good. You need to come to Lagos. You don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. Every executive order comes and you are doing one thing like this. Tomorrow it is gone. They just take it away from you. So you can't even, what is it? You put KPI there. Somebody else will give you another KPI and say that's what they are working with. You do this one. So, but what I would say out of all of this is that we need to continuously be coming to all of these trainings like this. Continue as an individual to upgrade yourself, to educate yourself, to empower yourself. If you don't do that, one day you'll be out of that service. Or you'll be out to meet. When I was in Lagos State, if I go out to different trainings or different forums and we're contributing, people will look at her and say, are you sure you work with Lagos State? Are you sure you're a civil servant or a public servant? Because of all the things that I'm doing now. I did it. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a fellow of CIPM. I am, all those things. I am a certified counselor. And all of these things I did on my own. So sometimes don't look at the environment that you're working, for, or you're working in. Continue to empower yourself as someone who is an HR practitioner or HR professional, because one day opportunity will meet preparation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that, training. I remember it. There's quite a lot of things that I take from it, because I did some CIPM training where I was told where I taught them on integrating data and technology into our HR work, so I could identify with quite a number of things that you talked about.
Thank you.
For me, it's either validating what I have taught or adding more, to everything that I know. I never take any training for granted at all. I'm always learning, adding more, validating and relearning. So thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you,
thank you for this platform. Honestly, every time that I meet it,
thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Madam Ita, just so you know, on a lighter note, she's one of the most consistent life participants, whether in UK or in Nigeria. She's almost always on, and she contributes actively.
I'm actually in the UK.
Both Nigerian perspective and the abroad. Thank you so much.
much. Thank you.
So I think we'll just take some closing comments and remarks from Madam Etayo, and we call it a wrap. I don't think we should add any more. This is enough sermon for one day. Any closing thoughts?
I agree. And honestly, I woke up this morning at 4 a.m. My first flight was 6:30. So
wow.
I am
Thank
I
you
am
for your
ready to
sacrifice.
shut down for the evening. I just want to say that I'm thoroughly encouraged. I'm encouraged by the number of people that attend these sessions. And I'm happy to be able to support. I mean, Dr. Adelshun, we don't say it enough. The work you are doing is amazing. The value of this, I don't know what people would have to pay if they needed to pay for these sessions. So just to encourage everybody, we do need these networks. We need these connections, and please reach out on LinkedIn. Let's connect and all that. It's important that we begin to support the system as a body of knowledge, HR as a body of knowledge, not just HR as a practice, but HR as a body of knowledge. That's what CIPM and all SHRM and all of them, that's what they're trying to do. So I think that all of us should think about it, in those terms. And thank you very much. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for your kind words, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's unmute and show her some love. At least what AI cannot do, let's tell her we love her. We are grateful. We are thankful.
We love
appreciate
you.
you.
We love you. Thank you,
I
ma'am.
love you, man.
God bless you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
I
so
see you
much.
all.
Thank
And
you.
the
Ma'am.
hearts. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
AI know the past.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I know we do
We
pass.
AI
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night. Good
Bye
night.
bye. Bye bye.